Mia married me when I was at my lowest. Everyone said she only married me despite my brother, but after she died in a car crash, she left her entire estate and a voice recorder to me. I gently pressed play, and her husky, low voice filled the air. She said, "Julian, could you maybe like me a little too?" After so many years, I finally glimpsed the vast, magnificent love she had hidden beneath a layer of ice. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn. My adoptive mother was gripping my hand, saying, "Julian, honey, could you go to prison for your brother?" Before I was 16, I was the pampered eldest son of the Vance family, adored by my parents and sister, living a carefree life. But then Noah showed up with a DNA test, and I learned that the nurse had switched us at birth. He was the true heir, and I was just the cuckoo in their nest. I had intended to leave, but my biological parents were already dead, and Mrs. Vance couldn't bear to see me become an orphan, so she officially adopted me. My adoptive parents were good to me, my sister never neglected me, and Noah never gave me any trouble. I was grateful, but then Noah got into a dispute with another actor backstage at a studio. During the argument, the man fell down a flight of stairs and ended up in a vegetative state. There were no security cameras, but someone had to take the blame, and I, as it happened, was there and saw everything. My adoptive mother came to me in tears, begging me to take the fall for Noah. Noah knelt before me, kowtowing and slapping his own face, saying he was sorry. The whole family was a mess of gut-wrenching sobs, so I nodded. I took the blame for him, went to prison, and endured hell. At first, the Vances would visit me, crying tears of guilt or apology, but slowly the visits stopped. Once, during a prison activity, the warden asked us about our plans after release. I thought for a long time before carefully writing, "After I get out, I want to see Mom and Dad." The inmate next to me saw it and laughed, teasing me for writing something so simple. "Of course your Mom and Dad will come pick you up. How could you not see them?" he said. I just smiled and didn't argue. But when I was actually released, no one came. Only the Vance family's assistant was there to drive me to the airport and give me a large sum of money. He didn't say a word, but I understood everything. My Mom and Dad didn't want me anymore. The Vance family had abandoned me. I didn't take the money, not out of some sense of pride, but because I didn't want to owe the Vances anything more. They had raised me for over 20 years, and I had served 5 years in prison for their son. We were even. I rented an apartment and ran myself ragged before I found a job that didn't mind my criminal record, but after just 2 weeks, I was fired. I pressed for a reason, and the manager finally admitted, "You crossed someone you shouldn't have." I froze, then couldn't say another word. Who else could it be but the Vances? That day, I walked out onto the street clutching my bag. A fine, cool mist fell on my face and clothes as I passed through the city square. A live broadcast of Noah was playing on the giant screen. I stopped and looked up. On the award stage, he was handsome and dashing, radiating charm. The camera panned to the audience, and I saw Mrs. and Mr. Vance looking at him with tears in their eyes, as if gazing upon a priceless treasure, their eyes filled with love. For some reason, I suddenly remembered my first prison visit. My adoptive mother looked at my rapidly thinning frame and tearfully promised me, "Julian, when you get out, Mom will take care of you for the rest of your life. Mom loves you." But the last time I saw her, 2 years before my release, her expression was only one of faint guilt. She had said, "Julian, Noah is getting engaged to Mia Thorne. He really likes her. When you get out, could you please leave the city so the Thorne family doesn't find out about the past?" Mia Thorne, the heiress of the Thorne family. There was a TV in prison, and I'd occasionally hear about the epic romance between Noah and Mia. They said Mia, known as a flirtatious beauty in her circle, had settled down for Noah. Even entering the entertainment industry, he despised to pave the way for him, leveraging her connections and presenting him with awards. I sometimes envied Noah. He had loving parents and an adoring girlfriend. In his early 20s, he already had it all, career and love. Unlike me, no parents, no career, no lover, and no one to love me. As for marrying Mia, that was an accident. After being fired, I went back to my old neighborhood and got a job as a waiter in a restaurant. It was busy. I don't know how she found out where I was, but when she found me, I was serving beer to a customer. A drunk woman started getting handsy. I frowned and slapped her hand away. The woman flew into a rage, kicked me to the ground, and sent a cascade of beer bottles and food all over me. The hot food burned. Still not satisfied, she was about to hit me again, cursing, but she suddenly went silent. I opened my eyes and met a pair of eyes that shone like stars. Mia smirked, a lazy, insincere smile. Julian, is this what you're doing now? I got up, brushed the food scraps off myself, nodded, and tried to walk past her. But I had only taken a few steps when I heard her voice behind me. Seeing you in such a mess. How about you marry me? I turned back in shock. Have you finally lost your mind? I'm serious, Mia said, her dark eyes sizing me up, betraying no emotion, but her tone was earnest. To be honest, your brother just dumped me, and I'm not happy about it. And you've been pushed into this corner by the Vansass. We're practically a league of victims. A streetlight flickered twice and died. I couldn't see her face clearly, only heard her chuckle as the red tip of her cigarette glowed. You have nothing left anyway. You don't lose anything by marrying me. What are you afraid of? I thought about it, and said nothing. She waited quietly. A cool breeze blew, and I shivered instinctively. Mia took off her high-end custom trench coat and draped it over my shoulders. Instantly, my senses were filled with her faint, sweet scent, almost like milk. Okay. When the news of our marriage broke, everyone was stunned. They all said Mia only married me to spite Noah. At the wedding, when Mia said, I do, I noticed Noah in the audience, his eyes red from crying, before he stumbled out of the venue. I glanced at the woman beside me, but she just smiled, not even looking his way, as if she had never loved him, as if she truly didn't care. After we were married, Mia was very good to me. She got me a job as her assistant, so we were tied together at all times. When I asked why, she just smiled flirtatiously. I can't trust leaving a handsome guy like you at home alone. What if a thief steals you away? I'd be a widow without ever having been a proper wife. Wouldn't that be a huge loss? I laughed at her shamelessness and didn't bother arguing. Those years in prison had taken a toll on my body. A common cold or cough for a normal person would turn into a major illness for me. Mia brought in all sorts of famous doctors to treat me, and I finally got a little better. By my bedside, she held my hand, her expression serious and almost reverent. Julian, I've bought you, so your life is mine now. You can't die before me. It was a childish thing to say, but seeing the hidden sorrow in her eyes, I eventually nodded. I didn't understand her sadness, but I had long learned not to ask, not to disturb. Okay, we were supposed to grow old together, but in the end, the one who broke the promise wasn't me. It was Mia. Mr. Vance, Miss Thorne passed away yesterday at 3:10 a.m. due to a major car accident. Resuscitation was unsuccessful. Please accept our condolences. Pushing open the door to the morgue, I saw Mia's parents already sobbing uncontrollably. I looked at Mia's pale, colorless face and could only think that fate had blessed her with family, beauty, and talent beyond anyone's reach. So why was it so stingy as to only give her 34 years? What a pity, what a shame. I handled Mia's funeral arrangements myself. After 5 years of marriage, many people still didn't approve of our relationship. Noah, his love turned to hate, was always waiting to see me make a fool of myself. But no one expected Mia to leave all her assets and shares to me. Her parents had no objections. They just looked bent and broken as they left, their former vitality gone. A week later, Mia's lawyer, Mr. Foster, brought me the inheritance transfer documents. As he was leaving, he handed me a voice recorder. This was Ms. Thorne's. It's been repaired. I thought you might need it, Mr. Vance. Julian. On the recording, the woman's voice was cool and clear, tinged with a bit of static that made it sound even huskier. I didn't marry you to spite Noah. I married you because I like you. I froze, but my heart was strangely calm, as if I had expected it. Mia let out a small laugh. You've probably forgotten, but we met a long time ago. You were the untouchable genius of our school, the teacher's favorite. My own mentor was always talking about you. Every time he finished chatting with your teacher, he'd come back and tell me grumpily, Mia, I'm starting to dislike you. Stay away from me. She mimicked her mentor's tone, sounding incredibly cute. I chuckled unconsciously, but then my smile slowly faded. Mia continued, I hated you back then, but I couldn't stop my eyes from following you. I guess I'm a bit of a masochist. But then you went to prison for so-called intentional injury. I didn't believe it. I was determined to find out the truth. But unfortunately, the Van Cess had cleaned up all the evidence, so I set my sights on Noah. So that was it. The legendary love story between Mia and Noah was just a cover for her to find out the truth about my imprisonment. But Mia didn't expect Noah's lips to be so tightly sealed. Still, she eventually found some clues. I suddenly remembered something from before our marriage. One day, Mia had asked me, "Julian, do you want to get revenge?" No. I had shaken my head. We're even after all these years. I finally understood. She must have found out the truth that day. She uncovered the truth for me. And then, for me, she buried it again. So it was all because of me. The emotions in my eyes trembled violently, and my whole body began to shake uncontrollably as tears streamed down my face. But then again, my acting must have been really, really good to have fooled everyone, including you. Do you know how adorable your expression was when I found you and asked you to marry me? Never mind, I'm rambling again. Actually, there's something I've always wanted to ask you. Mia coughed. Her voice, usually so cool, now held a rare hint of youthful shyness. Julian, could you like me a little too? I probably won't hear it in this life. So in the next life, when I come find you, you can tell me then. Amid the screech of sudden breaking and the shouts and screams of a crowd, I clearly heard her last words. She said, "Julian, I really, really, really like you so much." The end of her sentence was even tinged with a smile. The emotions I had suppressed for so long suddenly collapsed. In the empty living room, the lilies Mia had brought home a few days ago still sat on the table. I had always loved lilies, and she had presented them to me like a treasure. "Julian, do they smell good?" I picked them out one by one. "Julian, from now on, I'll be the one to change the flowers at home." The tiny specks of light in her eyes then were like gentle starlight. How could I have said no? But the one who made the promise had lied. She left first, taking the last bit of life from the lilies with her. The warm sun streamed through the French windows, landing on my shoulder. I reached out to touch it, but only felt a chilling cold. Today, I finally saw the magnificent secret love Mia had hidden under her icy exterior, but it seemed it was too late. The next time Mr. Foster saw Mr. Vance was a week later when he came to sign the inheritance papers. He had worked for Mia for many years and had met Julian many times. In his memory, Julian was always composed, a gentle smile on his face, like a jade Buddha observing the world's chaos with detached calm, without joy, anger, or any sign of being moved. Even when he learned of Mia's death, he had only paused for a moment, his eyes not even turning red. Mia had been so good to him, yet he hadn't shed a single tear for her. Mr. Foster had secretly felt it was unfair to Mia. But this time, as soon as he entered the living room, he saw Julian clutching a bouquet of withered lilies, his face whiter than falling snow. When he saw the lawyer, he didn't even offer a polite smile, just stated coldly, "Mr. Foster, donate her assets to an orphanage." "I don't want them." There was no room for discussion. As he was leaving, Mr. Foster couldn't help but turn back and ask, "Mr. Vance, did you ever love Miss Thorne?" I just smiled and didn't answer. Many years later, Julian was a renowned philanthropist, having sponsored countless orphans. I saw him again on his deathbed. He was only 45, but his hair was completely white. At that moment, he was looking out the window as if he saw someone, a boyish, bashful look on his face. He said, "I did. I always have. Mom is begging you, just save your brother. He's still so young. How can he go to prison?" Bro, I really know I was wrong. I don't want to go to prison. I'm a big star. My whole life will be ruined if I go to jail. Waking from a deep darkness, my ears were filled with a cacophony of crying and shouting. My head throbbed. I slowly opened my eyes and took in the scene. Noah was kneeling on the floor sobbing, while Mr. Vance held him, comforting him. Mrs. Vance was gripping my hand tightly, her face streaked with tears, her voice choked but serious. "Could you go to prison for your brother?" I looked at her silently. Taking my silence as encouragement, she gritted her teeth. "Julian, there were no cameras at the scene. Only you and Noah were there. The paparazzi only got a blurry shot of a back, nothing recognizable. As long as you admit you accidentally pushed Caleb, the police won't find anything. Don't worry, once you're in prison, Mom will arrange everything to make sure you don't suffer. When you get out, the Vance family will take care of you for life." She had said the same thing in my past life, but the promise had a shelf life of only a year. After it expired, I was moved out of the single cell, leading to bullying and retaliation from others, humiliation, and unbearable suffering. But no one ever came to see me. It wasn't until I was hospitalized for nitrite poisoning from the prison food that Mrs. Vance appeared at my bedside. That day, she looked down at me, her expression tinged with impatience. It's a prison after all, not a resort. A little suffering is inevitable. Julian, don't be so dramatic. Noah has to go abroad for work soon, and I'm worried about him. I probably won't have time to visit you anymore. After that, I never saw her again. Looking at Mrs. Vance's tear-streaked face now, I believed her words were sincere at this moment. But sincerity is fickle. Her guilt and remorse for me would eventually, over time, morph into a deeper fear. I gently pulled my hand away from hers. No, I said. Mrs. Vance was stunned, probably not expecting me, who was usually as meek as a lamb, to refuse her. But when I spoke again, my voice was serious. Mom, I'm grateful that you raised me for 20 years, but I'm not willing to gamble my entire life on it. Call me selfish, call me an ungrateful wolf, but I will not take the fall for him. I was reborn to not repeat my mistakes. In my past life, Mia saved me. This time, I had to save myself and then walk to her side with my head held high. My refusal enraged Mr. Vance. He berated me for being ungrateful, for enjoying the Vance family's benefits for so many years without being willing to give anything back. Mrs. Vance and Noah cried their hearts out. Seeing that I wouldn't budge, they worried I would run, so they locked me in my room. Only my sister Clara remained silent throughout, just as she had in my past life. Mrs. Vance took my phone, but she didn't know I had a spare. I turned on the backup phone. The news of Caleb's accidental injury yesterday, which had left him in a coma, was already trending. There was only a blurry photo of a back from a paparazzo, and his claim Noah had been alone with Caleb for a while. The police were probably on their way. I scrolled through my contacts on the spare phone and instinctively stopped at a familiar number. I hesitated, but ultimately didn't dial. A part of me was afraid that the person on the other end wouldn't be the one I knew, and even more afraid that if I woke up from this dream, I'd never see her again. In my past life, after Mia died, I kept her phone number active. In the dead of night, I would send her texts about my day or just vent. I would always get an auto-reply. Julian. She had set it up before she died. How could a person be so cruel, so cruelly holding on to my heart that I couldn't forget her for 20, 30 years? I got up and opened the curtains. Warm sunlight fell on me, carrying a slight chill. I saw the police officers outside and Mr. Vance's furtive glance in my direction. With a trembling hand, I finally sent a text. Mia, do you want to come save me? Mrs. Vance wanted to stop me from showing my face and thus solidify my guilt, but I pounded on the door. Facing the police's questions, I ignored Mrs. Vance's pleading gaze and answered each one. In my past life, the case was closed so smoothly because I confessed and even destroyed my own alibi, but this time I wouldn't be so foolish. The gratitude from those 20-odd years had already been worn away in my previous life. Not hating them was the best I could do. In contrast to my calm composure, Noah was flustered and guilty. It was obvious who was in the right and who was in the wrong. When Noah was taken away, Mrs. Vance screamed hysterically, and Mr. Vance's face was dark, his occasional glances at me filled with the hatred one would have for a son's murderer. They followed Noah out without another word. Just then, Clara walked up to me and said in a low voice, "The Vance family has no place for you anymore. You should leave." I looked up at her, my gaze lingering on her reddened eyes for a second. "You don't blame me." Clara paused, not answering yes or no, just looking towards the distant police car, her voice as light as the wind. "You're my brother too." She had said the same thing in my past life. She had advised me not to take the fall. I looked down at her, my gaze like wind and rain, gentle and pleased. "You're my brother too." I had ignored her advice then, but this time I decided to listen. Mr. and Mrs. Vance must hate me to the bone now. Staying would only cause more trouble. I said seriously, "Take care of yourself." Clara's lips curved into a faint smile, her voice hoarse. "Julian, live your life to the fullest." I walked out of the Vance house and looked ahead. The wind blew, and the sunlight felt warm on my skin. Just then, a figure rushed in front of me, their tone frantic. "Julian." I paused and looked up. A woman in a black dress, her figure slender and graceful, her eyes deep. Standing in the morning sun, she seemed to be glowing. Her elegant, roguishly handsome face usually looked lazy and carefree, but right now her face was slightly pale, her expression tense as she looked me over. Seeing that I was unharmed, her expression relaxed. Her gaze rested on my suitcase for a couple of seconds before she spoke again. Julian, did you run away from home? It was Mia, a much younger Mia. Memories flooded my mind. Her gentle gazes, her lazy yawns, me holding her hand as we walked into our marriage, and finally the image of our first real meeting that evening. Her hands secretly clenched as she asked, Julian, how about you marry me? My heart pounded wildly in my chest. I couldn't bear to look away from her, not even for a second, until her eyes widened in alarm. Why are you crying? Who bullied you? Why was I crying? I should have been happy to see her again, but all the emotions pent up from my past life turned into tears flowing from my heart. I couldn't stop them. I cried, and Mia just stood there quietly with me. After a long while, she pulled me into her arms with a sort of helpless affection, as if comforting a beloved child. Don't cry. Who bullied you? Tell me, okay? I clutched her sleeve and shook my head. I don't want revenge. I just want to be with you. I went back to Mia's apartment with her. It was cold and empty. In my past life, after she died, I would often stay here as if in remembrance. I was already familiar with the layout, but I didn't notice Mia's gaze darkened for a moment as I confidently walked to the far end of the apartment and turned into the bathroom. Looking at my red, swollen, and pathetic reflection in the mirror, I sighed, feeling a bit embarrassed. I had resolved to face Mia with dignity, yet here I was, a complete mess. But it didn't matter. Mia loved me so much she wouldn't mind. That was the one thing I was most certain of in this life. When I came out of the bathroom, Mia was leaning against the doorframe, waiting. Why were you crying? She asked. I told her everything that had just happened. There were no secrets between us. Mia was taken aback. So the Van Cess wanted you to take the fall. I nodded. This won't be over so easily. Even though Caleb is in a coma and there's no hard evidence, they can't convict Noah until he wakes up. And even if the police consider Noah the main suspect now, you're not entirely in the clear. The more she spoke, the darker her face became. I suddenly cut her off. Mia, I'm a little hungry. Her gaze shifted to me, seeing no trace of anxiety, and she said with a helpless sigh, I'll go make something. I nodded. My stomach problems were severe, so Mia had specifically learned to cook medicinal cuisine, preparing meals for me herself every day. I had assumed she was naturally good at cooking, but now, seeing the clump of noodles she brought out, I suddenly realized Mia was a high society heiress, always waited on by others. How could she have known how to cook from the start? It had always been for me. I picked up my chopsticks and took a bite. Mia watched me with anticipation. Is it good? Her eyes sparkled with tiny stars, so beautiful, just like the woman in my memory who had smiled and asked if I liked her. I fought back the lump in my throat and nodded firmly. It's delicious. I love it. In the end, that bowl of noodles was thrown in the trash because I started crying. Mia thought it was because they tasted bad. She picked up her chopsticks and tried to bite herself. The next second, she grimaced, her expression dissatisfied. I want to cry too. How can it be so bad? It was adorable, and it made me laugh out loud, chasing away the gloom from my brow. I encouraged her. You'll be a great cook in the future. I'm laughing because, well, I'm your only customer in the future. The woman's eyes flickered, a thoughtful, inscrutable look in them. She said in a deep voice, Julian, what am I to you in the future? I looked up and met her dark, confident, and certain eyes. She had guessed. She was always so smart. I paused for a moment, then said slowly, my love. I thought Mia might be stunned or maybe frown and ask for more details, but instead, her expression softened, and her lips curved upwards, shedding their usual carefree air for one of utter sincerity. That's good, she said. Looking at the beauty mark near her eye that moved when she smiled, I suddenly wanted to taste it. I thought about it, and then I did it. I stood on my toes and, as she looked at me in astonishment, I whispered, Mia, I like you so much. I forgot to tell you in my last life, so I'm telling you now. I like you. I've always liked you. Before bed, Mia tucked me in. If you get scared, I'll be here right away. Before leaving, she placed the protective amulet she wore around her neck on my chest. I knew about it. Mia had been frail as a child, and her mother had gotten this amulet for her to protect her as she grew up. Now she was using it to protect me. I clutched the jade pendant, my heart racing and my cheeks burning. It wasn't until Mia had slowly walked out that I realized my face was a little sore from smiling so much. My heart felt full. Mia was always like that, seemingly a flirtatious socialite who didn't care about anything. But in reality, she was the most attentive and gentle person. I couldn't fall asleep that night, feeling both excited and scared. I glanced at the phone by my pillow. I wondered if Mia was asleep yet. I was afraid to call and disturb her, so I decided to send a text. The moment I sent it, I felt it was unnecessary and was about to delete it when I heard footsteps outside, followed by the sound of the door opening. Mia stood by my bed, the moonlight streaming through the window and softening the sharp angles of her face, making her look gentle. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. It had been less than a minute since I sent the message, but she was already here. She was truly a woman of her word. No matter how late, she would come, just like that night, just because I was afraid I might really need her. My heart clenched tightly. I ended up staying at Mia's for 2 weeks. The most interesting part of my day was waiting for her to come home. She would go into the kitchen and experiment with her cooking, and I would lean against the doorframe watching her quietly, occasionally lending a hand. With her hair tied up, revealing a beautiful and slightly youthful face bathed in a warm glow, she exuded a gentle grace. At this point, she hadn't even graduated from college yet. Compared to the decisive, powerful Mia from my past life, she was still a bit green. This was a time in her life I had never been a part of, never known. She would occasionally look up at me, her lips curling into a slight smile, the pure love in her eyes impossible to hide. She was so in love with me. I was struck by the realization that in the time I never knew, Mia had loved me with all her heart. My heart constricted, and the feeling spread through my body, finally turning into a long sigh. As Mia's cooking skills improved day by day, the Vance family finally couldn't hold back any longer. They weren't going to let Noah just admit his guilt and go to prison, but I never expected them to stoop so low as to bribe Caleb's agent to point the finger at me as the real culprit. So shameless, so despicable. Mrs. Vance revealed my and Noah's true parentage to the media, crying a river of tears. I never thought Julian would intentionally hurt someone. He was always such a good boy. Now, to avoid punishment, he's framing his own brother. Noah is my biological son, but he's barely had a day of happiness, and now he's being falsely accused. Julian is breaking my heart. Noah huddled in her arms, clumsily wiping her tears while letting his own stream down his face. "Mom, don't be sad. Brother must have just made a mistake in a moment of confusion. If I can atone for his sin, I'm willing to take his place, as long as he can be a good son to you." The mother and son put on a pitiful, sorrowful performance for the media. Those who make mistakes must take responsibility. You shouldn't have to bear what isn't yours to bear, Mr. Vance said righteously to the cameras. "Julian, the Vance family raised you for so many years. We hope you will step forward." Once the video was released, a wave of condemnation against me swept the internet. What an ungrateful wolf. A fake young master who enjoyed a life of luxury for years, only to let the real son of the Vance family take the fall for him? Is he even human? You coward, you do the crime but won't do the time. Yeah, the Vance family was more than fair to you, and this is how you repay their kindness. The insults were endless. My private social media accounts were docked, and my DMs exploded daily. Even old classmates called to ask about the situation, some telling me to just confess. The outside world was in an uproar, but I did nothing. No matter how much the Vances stirred up trouble, as long as the police didn't summon me, I was innocent. Why should I fall into the trap of having to prove myself? That day, Mia got the news and rushed home. The first thing she said was, "I can help you." "No need," I said. Halfway through my sentence, for some reason, I suddenly remembered an incident from my past life, a fierce argument. It was simply because Mia was treating me too well, which made many people jealous. Someone started spreading rumors about my time in prison, and the internet was filled with insults, all boiling down to me not being good enough for Mia. Mia wanted to help me quash the rumors, to attend a press conference with me and file lawsuits against the gossipers, but I felt it was unnecessary. I had been to prison, and though my conscience was clear, I didn't want Mia to be dragged into the controversy. This infuriated her. She coldly asked if I even cared about her, if I considered her my wife. I just thought it was better to let things cool down, that she was being unreasonable. That day, the living room lights were off, leaving only the fading glow of sunset. After a long silence, she said one thing. You are pristine in this world, and I can't stand anyone pointing fingers at you. Do you understand? I remained silent, refusing to answer. I looked back and saw her lonely silhouette. I felt a pang of regret then. I should have just agreed with her. It was such a small thing. I never thought that would be the last time I saw her. After she died, I asked myself over and over again, why wouldn't I stand with her? Why wouldn't I tell her how I felt? Those bouquets of lilies, that constant care, that focused gaze, did I really not notice she loved me? I knew it all along, but I was just a bastard who took her for granted, so sure that Mia would be with me until the end, selfishly basking in her love without ever soothing her anxious heart. It wasn't until she was dead that I understood love. But the cruelest thing about a love realized too late is that before you can even confess it, you've lost the chance forever. This new life was a chance from heaven to make amends. I couldn't be bothered with the coyness and slow progression of a typical romance. I just wanted to be with her. I wanted to, and I still wanted to. So I wrapped my arms around Mia tightly and kissed her lips. Between our lips and teeth, I gasped softly. Okay, consider this a down payment on your reward. Mia froze for a second, then pushed me down onto the sofa with more force and depth. 2 hours later, I was too tired to get up, but I held on to Mia tightly, refusing to let go. I looked at her, so sleepy I could barely keep my eyes open, but I didn't want to close them. I was still afraid this was all a dream. She leaned down and kissed my cheek, my brow. Julian, I'm always here. I couldn't hold on any longer and fell into darkness. In the darkness, I was in my pajamas, lying in a black and white bedroom. On the nightstand was a glass of cold water and a white pill next to it. It was cold and empty without that familiar person. My heart suddenly seized with pain as memories flooded my mind, finally settling on that low, static-filled voice. Julian, I really like you so much. So it was a dream? A beautiful dream? I clutched my chest, my hands and feet turning ice cold as if I were trapped in a net, my breath slowly being squeezed out of me as tears fell one by one. What's wrong? Someone suddenly pushed open the door and came to my side, looking at me with a frantic expression. Through my blurry, tear-filled eyes, I wiped them and finally saw the woman's face clearly. Julian, I just went out to deal with the Vances. I found the agent they bribed, and I also found a janitor who was passing by that day. He saw Noah push Caleb. Noah's been convicted, and I'm suing the Vances for defamation. No one will ever slander you again. The woman gently patted my back while explaining everything that had happened while I was asleep. I leaned into her embrace, listening to the clear, strong beat of her heart, and finally managed to smile. I missed you, I told her softly. Have I told you? I really like you so much. The woman laughed and held me tighter. I like you too, Julian, she said. After so many years, we finally told each other of our love. Neither mountains, seas, nor time and space could prevent the reunion of two people in love. I was reborn too. After my rebirth, I went to the Vance house and found that everything was still peaceful. Julian was still the coldest, smartest god of the entire college. Not the man from my past life who seemed gentle on the surface, but whose heart was riddled with scars. My Julian had no sense of security. Prison was too harsh, and he was the target of jealousy. The other inmates would often torment him in the middle of the night. Even when he was asleep, the slightest noise would jolt him awake. Yet despite all that, he managed to do his job well during the day. My Julian was fragile snow and resilient pine, seemingly meltable by a single ray of light, but in reality, he was indestructible. I admired him for it. At the school's opening ceremony, Julian, as the student council president, gave a speech on stage. I sat in the audience, watching him from afar. The boy was in a uniform, his short hair neat, revealing a handsome and youthful face. He effortlessly exuded his charm and displayed his knowledge, captivating many whether they were looking or listening. This was the Julian from my memories, the young, innocent academic prodigy. Julian stood on the stage, the wind blowing through his hair, the sun seeming to favor him, dyeing his hair a light gold. I suddenly wished that time could freeze in that moment, that my Julian would never have to endure those hardships, that he could remain forever innocent. It would be so good if he never had to suffer, never had to face rumors and ridicule. I already knew Noah would get into trouble, so I had specifically installed a camera in that secluded stairwell. I was about to release the footage when I received Julian's message for help. In that moment, I knew Julian was back, too. I wanted to see what he would do this time, how he would handle the Vance cess. And this time, he refused to take the fall. He left the Vance house. I saw him quietly dragging his suitcase down the deserted, tree-lined avenue. He broke into a smile that made me feel like the sunlight that day was so warm. I took him home. I pretended to know nothing, and after much effort, I managed to make a bowl of unappetizing noodles. I watched him freeze, then slowly guided him to discover my love for him. Seeing his heart tremble for me, I should have been overjoyed, but the moment I saw his tears, my own heart ached. Never mind, it was enough that I loved him, whether he loved me back or not. What did it matter? He pressed into my arms, holding me tight, and told me he really liked me. In that moment, I felt as if 1,000 flowers were blooming. I fought back the tears welling in my eyes and, word by word, responded to my prince. Julian, I really like you too. They say those who are meant to be will always find each other, and when they do, the sun is sure to be shining warmly.